Hello, my name is Paul Naval, and I'm the second affirmative for lifting the Cuban embargo. So the first negative says that keeping the embargo puts pressure on to improve human rights. But as the first affirmative said, over the past 50 years, there has been no significant change in the way the Cuban government handles themselves. According to Mayra Gomez, author in The Human Rights in Cuba, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, a sociological perspective, she says that she talks about how in February 7th, 2012 marks the 50th anniversary of the embargo, and the goal of forcing Cuba to adopt a representative democracy still has not been achieved. And then, according to an article in CNN.com, they state that Fidel Castro resigned his presidency in 2008 and abdicated his role as the leader of the Communist Party in 2011. This shows that after almost more than 50 years, there's still not been improvements on human rights with the embargo in place. And the affirmative would like to state that that with the removal of the embargo, we should be able to impact the people of Cuba positively by, like again, the affirmative stated, by providing health and technology. As stated before from Amnesty International, treatments for children and young people are currently not readily available with the embargo in place. However, with it removed, human rights activists would be very pleased to know that their citizens would be taken care of. The first negative also states that that the Cuban government has no willingness to go to lifting the embargo, but according to Council on Foreign Relations, Danielle Renwick states that in 2008, Raul Castro has spoken of the need to reform Cuba's economic system, facing an aging population, heavy foreign debt, and economic hardship amid the global economic downturn. Castro began to liberalize parts of Cuba's largely state-controlled economy and loosened restrictions on personal freedoms. Also, according to New York Times, it is reported that Cuba is planning to, or Castro is planning to decentralize the agricultural center, relaxing restrictions on small businesses, liberalizing real estate markets, making it easier for Cubans to obtain government permission to travel abroad, expanding access to consumer goods. And if these things are already planned, then how is the Cuban government unwilling to meet the US in lifting the embargo? Third, the negative stated that minimal efforts would be applied to the US economy if the embargo was lifted. But as stated before from the affirmative, according to the US Chamber of Commerce, the US Chamber of Commerce opposes the embargo, and it costs the United States $1.2 billion annual cost and loss of exports. And $1.2 billion is not a minimal amount of money. It's actually quite significant. And not just for exports, but imports as well. And according to Time magazine, they interviewed Habanos S.A., a 50-50 joint venture between the Cuban state and Imperial Taco Group, PLC, and said that annually they generate $439 million just in 2014 without the US being in their market. And yeah, and since this is a 50-50 joint venture with the Cuban state and Imperial Tobacco Group, it wouldn't really affect the Cuban government since they own half of that company. Also, according to MSNBC, the United States already trades with China, Venezuela, and Vietnam, despite their records of human rights violations. President George W. Bush lifted the trade sanctions on North Korea in 2008, even amidst the concerns about the nation's desire to develop nuclear weapons. So the affirmative would like to state again that lifting the embargo would help with human rights as opposed to put more pressure by leaving the embargo. by introducing trade with medical and medical aid, and that the Cuban government is willing to negotiate and willing to lift the trade and begin trade, lift the embargo, I'm sorry, and also that the lifting the embargo would have significant effects on the US economy and also on the Cuban government as well. Thank you.